Oh goodness. Okay, so in Slack, in the VFX channel, I've pinned a document. You can get to it. You hit this I here to get information on the channel, and then you can see the pinned items. It's just a Google Drive document that I put together with some quick intro steps to get used to building effects in Unreal. So if you're going to be building effects for the game, I highly recommend that you go through each of these so you can learn how to build particle systems in Unreal, and you can learn how to build materials in Unreal, because custom materials is a big part of building effects when you're doing this for video games. And then these breakdowns right here on Jason Kaiser's YouTube site are extremely good for showing the general techniques of building effects. And then we will want to incorporate flash animations into our effects for this project in order to get a hand-painted feel that kind of matches League of Legends. And if you don't know anything about Flash and you don't know anything about animating in Flash, Jason has made almost 100 videos so far teaching exactly that, how to do visual effects animations in Flash. And they're all really good tutorials where he has the thing recording the whole time that he's drawing. So you really get to see what it takes to do it. And then reference. Like everything else in art, you have to look at a lot of reference while you're building these effects. And so I have put together a small catalog where I've compiled various people's portfolios. These are professional portfolios of people that work in the industry. So I have a link to the portfolio, and then as I go through them, I add just keywords saying what types of effects I can find in that portfolio. So if I was building an effect that needed fire, I would pull this up. I would look through it and see how did they accomplish it, and then try to match it. And then Jason also has a Pinterest board with lots and lots of reference. He keeps this updated almost daily, so there's lots of good stuff in here. And so if you're building effects, get into this document first, go through these links, and try to understand what's going on. For today's demonstration, I'm going to focus on this here.
Okay, guys.
This is Jason's breakdown of Spiritfire brand's effects. And I rebuilt the effect in Unreal so that in your own time, when you have time to go through and study this, you can pull up his walkthrough on one side and then pull up my build of it in Unreal, and you can look at the different pieces. You can look at how I did each of the things that he's saying to do in the video. To get there, you just go Effects, and then Brand Example, and we're going to do this hand fire. There you go. So this I built in Unreal. It was quick. It took me maybe about an hour. And these are the emitters that I used to build it. Okay. So I won't play the video here. If you're interested, I'll let you go through and watch a video. It's an excellent video, and it's a great place to start. I will go over just some of the basics of how to build an effect in Unreal and how to get used to this editor. So in this editor, you have your viewport, obviously, where you can see the effect. You have a Details tab, which lets you get details on each of these different modules. So an effect has different emitters. Each of these columns is an emitter, and each emitter has several modules. And a module controls the behavior of the particles for that emitter. So we'll look at just this first one. This first one is just this dark fuzzball. That's why it's called dark fuzzy. And the different modules here are required. Required is just your basic general properties for an emitter. You have things like the duration, delay, sub-UV, and then I don't use these ever really. But these three are important, so you're going to want to know the duration, delay, and sub UV. Then there's a spawn, which lets you either have them spawn at a constant rate, like these ones. These are spawning 4 every second. You can change it to be a burst instead, so it only goes off once at the beginning or at a specified time. Then there's lifetime, which specifies how long a particle lasts. Each of these particles lasts 3 seconds. Then there's the initial size, which is how big the particle is at start, and it's 25 in each dimension, even though there is no Z actually, but it's there. Then we give them an initial velocity. Actually, this one has no initial velocity, so we could delete it, and it wouldn't change the behavior at all. But if we decided we wanted to add initial velocity, we just need to add the module. To do that, you right-click, and you select it from this list. So we would say velocity, initial velocity. And we can make it go up in Z. But we don't actually want it to do that, so we'll get rid of it. And then color over life is important. Here we can specify its color at different life points. So it's starting out that color and it's changing to the same color. Again, I did this really quickly, so it's not optimized. But we can make them so they go green at the end of their life, right? And since they're all spawning on top of each other, they overlap like that, and you get some weird clipping. So we don't want to do that. But you can also change its alpha over life. And this guy is starting out at full alpha and then going down to 0. That's just fading out. So it comes in at its full opacity, and then over its lifetime it fades out. And again, because they're spawning on top of each other, it's hard to tell. But I do this, as he explains in the video, because if you watch closely, this kind of pulsates a little bit. And it's kind of just like a subconscious thing to add to the appeal of the effect. That's also helped by size by life. And you'll see here, it's again, by the life, we're going to say at life point 0, you're this size, and at point 1, you're this size, and at point 2, you're this size. And then we're also rotating. Now I can't go through each of these modules. That would take forever, and the best way to do it is to get in and see what you need and to experiment with them. But I'll show you how layering these on top of each other builds to an effect. So we'll start with the dark background. Then we add this dark flame on top of it to give it more of a chaotic feel. Then we're going to put the bright flame coming up. And then we'll put the bright dots in there. And that's basically the 4 pieces that he has in his effect for this champion. So you can see with just a little bit of work and keeping things simple, we can build an effective effect at a professional quality. So if you're building something similar to this, or you want to learn how these modules work, just jump in here, look at these modules, tweak the numbers, and see what happens. I also built this example. Oh, it's broken. Never mind. I'll try to fix that one. That one is an example of how to use a mesh, because when you're building effects, we're going to use meshes a lot. And he explains that in the video as well. And then you can look at this example to see how you do meshes in Unreal. And then I also have been working on effects for our pumpkin head, and I can show you those as well. These ones I built from scratch. So that one's just an explosion, right? And that one is more complicated. I've got a lot of emitters. But what you're doing here is just layering things on top of each other. You start with a base, and then you say what goes on top of it, right? And eventually you just break it down into its pieces here. If you do want to start building effects, I recommend you use these material templates that I've built. Does everyone here know the difference between additive and alpha blended? Raise your hand if you don't know. Okay, perfect. This is another key concept. Alpha blended means that it'll render the particle unlit, but with, it's really hard to explain the difference. Maybe I will just show you here. In this example, the flames themselves are alpha blended. They are actual, well, gosh, I didn't realize it was this hard to explain these things. The flames are alpha blended, and these little fuzz balls behind them are additive. An additive material actually adds color to the objects that are behind it. So you use additive for glows or for anything that's light and subtle. And then alpha blended, it looks like it's the actual cutout of the object on a card floating in space, right? You're not adding it to the background behind it. It is just the color that it is. And you can see that in these different materials. I've created an unlit additive as well as an unlit alpha blended. These are your two basic ones. To create the material that you need, you can right-click and create a material instance. When you open it up, all you have to do is say, I want to change the texture, and change the texture to whatever you want it to be. I've also created some scrolling effects. These are a little more advanced that we won't talk about here. And I've also created just some general effects, like if you just wanted to throw in additive flames real fast, just use this material that I created here. Or if you wanted a fuzzball, there's one right there. And that's what we're going to try to do. We're going to try to create materials for general things that everyone has access to. If it's something more specific to the effect you're working on, then keep it in the folder for the effect. Okay, that was a lot of stuff, I know. But hopefully I gave you the groundwork to jump in and start learning these things for yourself. Again, that document is pinned on the VFX channel on Slack. So that's a great place to start. Does anyone have questions?
Did you pin individual like shader pieces yourself?
I did, yeah. They're all pretty simple. Like where did they go? Here. Like this one. That's all it is, right? And so when it spawns, it chooses one of these 9 randomly.
So when you import those images, are they like Photoshop files, JPEGs, PNGs? What?
If you were, so I generate all my files in Photoshop, and Unreal can handle Photoshop files, so just stick with the Photoshop. It makes it a lot easier across the board if you don't try to save it as a PNG, because then you have to resave it every time. Just you work from a Photoshop file. And it handles transparency as well. So like on this one, the background is transparent. I just don't have a background in the Photoshop file, and it comes through exactly like that. Yeah.
Is there an artistic reason why there's that dark fuzzy and that brand fire effect? 'Cause I know you did the same thing on the Ferris.
Yes,
Arrow.
absolutely. I will show you. And it's part of using additives, because against a gray background, this looks pretty good, right? But if we go against the sky, if it's additive, it gets washed out very easily. And so we put a dark alpha blended card behind it to help it stand out and retain its color, while still looking like it's glowing. Anything else? Okay, so I'm always available for questions. If you ever have questions about effects, I will probably be able to answer them, and I'm almost always upstairs in the lab.